Are you thinking about selling your home, but you're not sure where you're going to move to yet, or you're afraid that you're going to end up homeless? Are you a buyer on a flexible timeline and looking for an edge over the competition to help your offer stand out and be more likely to be accepted? Well, you should consider a rentback. So what is a rentback? You may have heard this term thrown around. It's been a rising trend in real estate, especially over the last few years as we've had less and less inventory available. So what is it? How does it work? If you're a seller, what can you expect? Can you use this tool to help you avoid moving twice? Are you really renting your own house? If you're a buyer, how can you use this strategy to help your offer be more acceptable to a seller? When is it appropriate to use? How much should you charge? I'm going to answer all these questions and more coming up next. Hi, I'm Ryan Nicholas with the Damon Sells Homes team at Coldwell Banker, and my team and I help home buyers navigate the complex Northern Virginia home buying market using our smart home buying strategy, a proven, repeatable system backed by market research and decades of experience, using little-known strategies and tactics to help you find the perfect house, buy it for the least amount of money, and avoid the common mistakes you might make that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Be sure to comment below if you have any questions about something you hear in the video today. I'll read and respond to every comment. And of course, please subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more videos to help give you an edge in the Northern Virginia real estate market. Before we dive in fully to break down what a rentback is, I want to address a common misconception. We call it a rentback colloquially, but legally, this arrangement is not considered a rental. The sellers are not legally considered tenants, and the buyers are not legally considered landlords. And in Virginia, the Virginia Residential Landlord and Tenant Act does not apply. The actual legal term for what we're going to talk about today is a seller's post-settlement occupancy period. But from here on out, we'll call it a rentback. It's a little bit easier to say. A rentback occurs when a seller closes on the sale of their house to the new buyer, but doesn't move out yet. They rent back from the buyer for a period of time, usually 60 days or less. And at the end of the rentback period, the sellers move out and the buyers can now move in. The number one fear sellers have about their home selling process, other than their home not selling, is probably this one. I don't want to end up homeless. I hear it all the time. It's totally understandable. Sellers love rentbacks because it smooths out that moving process and takes away a lot of the stress. Here's why. Before rentbacks became popularized, we used to have a lot more coinciding settlements. This meant that not only would they have to find a buyer to buy their home, but they'd also have to simultaneously find a new home to buy. And we used to schedule the closings for both homes on the same day. So you can imagine the powder keg that this created. When one sale depended on the other one to go through, any delay in the sale of their home could jeopardize or at least delay the purchase of the new one. So you can imagine the stress that it would put on somebody and the additional expense that it would cause to have all your earthly possessions loaded up on a moving truck on a hot summer day, and then your closing gets delayed, and it delays everything, and you can't move in for 4 days. You can't sell your house, you can't buy the next house. Well, we haven't had to deal with a situation like that in years. Now it's much more common for us to negotiate a rentback agreement whereby you can sell your house one day, close on your new house anytime after that, stay in your old house until you move fully out into the new house, and then turn over the keys to the buyers. One of my clients is doing this right now as we speak. They've already closed on the sale of their home, they've got their money from the sale, and they have almost 2 months to rent back while they wait for their new home to finish being built. It should be ready in the next couple weeks. They can take their time moving in without having to move into a hotel and pay to put their things in storage. The other great benefit to the sellers in implementing a rentback strategy into their move is the improved purchasing power and negotiating position that it puts them in when they become a buyer looking for their next home, especially in a fast-paced competitive market like we've had the last few years. I'll tell you what I mean by that. In a bidding war situation, if you were a seller, how likely do you think it would be that you would accept an offer that's contingent on this buyer selling their current home, which is very risky, when you've got multiple other offers in hand with few or no contingencies. Almost no chance, right? So we wouldn't see a lot of sellers have their offers accepted until after their house was sold and they're in that 2-month rent back period. Because by then, their home is sold, they've got the proceeds from their equity in their home, and they can make a very strong offer with a strong down payment and no home sale contingency, which is a much more appealing offer to a potential seller. Now, from a buyer's perspective, of course, most of the time, they're so excited for their new home and they want to move in right away. Maybe they have a lease ending or the school year starting, or they want to move in by the holidays or what have you. But if the buyer is willing to be patient and flexible, offering a rent back can be advantageous to them. Maybe their lease isn't up for several more months. If the seller wants a rent back, that buyer may be more than happy to give it to them so they aren't paying double for their new mortgage and their rent for as long as they otherwise would have. Suppose the seller still lives in the house. They might need more time before they can move into their new house, or maybe they haven't even found their new house yet. Having that flexibility is going to be very valuable to them. I've seen buyers get offers accepted that were not the highest offer because they were willing to offer that rent back while the other offer did not. Most sellers aren't going to care about a couple extra $1,000s if it means they have to deal with moving twice and putting their things in storage. So it may enable you to buy a house for less money by offering better terms attractive to the seller. So how long can you rent back for? I've mentioned 60 days a couple times. So rent backs can range from 1 day up to 60 days if the buyer is using a primary occupant loan. The reason you can't have it be more than 60 is that usually the buyer's lender will require them to move in within 60 days since they are buying a primary residence and the lender is offering them a more attractive interest rate because of that. If they don't move in within 60 days and are renting it to the sellers, the lender would consider them to be an investor and charge them a higher rate. However, if the buyer's paying cash for the house or using a special type of financing that does not have that 60-day rule attached to it, they may offer the seller a rent back for longer than 60 days. I've seen them up to a year before. So if you're a seller, you might wonder, how much is this going to cost me? If you're a buyer, it's how much should I charge? Well, traditionally, when a rent back occurs, the seller covers all of the buyer's prorated carrying costs, which are your mortgage payment and your HOA dues, if any. I think in a balanced market, people generally think that's fair, and that's what usually happens. But you can really charge whatever you want. If you want to make your offer look a little better, you could charge a little bit less than your carrying costs. You could probably charge more, although I've never seen that unless a seller overstays their welcome, in which case they usually have to pay double the carrying costs. Sometimes if the buyer's mortgage is going to be a lot bigger than what the seller's mortgage was, they don't want to pay more than what they were already paying. Sometimes we've made a rent back free for a certain period of time, but if they stayed longer, then there would be a fee. But this is all going to be situationally dependent, so lean on your agent to help guide you in making that decision. Now, one of our most successful negotiating strategies when representing buyers, especially in the last few years, has been offering a rent back to the seller and not charging them anything. Free rent back. Why would you want to do that? Well, there's two reasons. First, people make decisions emotionally and then justify logically. In theory, the money might be the same if you charge for the rent back, but pay more money for the house. But sellers usually think that, oh, it's so nice if a buyer offers them a free rent back because of the convenience of just being able to have that flexibility. It's just a nice touch. And second, if you close, let's say at the beginning of a month, your first mortgage payment is typically not due until almost 2 months later. So you could offer a free rent back to the seller for up to 2 months and not even have to pay your mortgage during that time. So it's a little easier to stomach as a buyer in a competitive market, and it goes a long way with the seller. The other cost involved is going to be a deposit that is held back from the seller by the title company, much like a security deposit when you rent a house. The deposit is there to help cover any damages that may occur while the seller is renting back. And our contract says that at the end of the rent back period, the house must be in substantially the same condition it was in as of the date of closing when they turn it over to the buyer. I've personally negotiated over 50 rent backs and I've only ever had an issue with 1 or 2 of them, so this is not typically a big concern. There's a lot more to the ins and outs of rent backs. I hope this video gave you a good basic understanding, but just know that if you work with us to help you buy or sell your home, we'll walk you through this every step of the way. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to schedule a time to talk about buying a home in Northern Virginia, I've made it really easy for you. Just follow the instructions in the description below. And if you got value from this video, please like it, and I'd love it if you could share it with somebody else you know who might get value from it too. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out the other playlists for more great information on the Northern Virginia real estate market.